I never thought the moment that would leave me doubled over with guilt would be choosing between my dad's wedding and somebody else's. I mean, how do you even end up in a situation like that? How do you glance at your calendar, see two dates that are both meant to be happy, and realize one of them is going to break someone's heart no matter what you do? And the worst part, I still don't know whether the choice I'm about to make is going to turn me into the villain in my own family. My dad is 60. 4 years ago, our whole world split open when my mom died suddenly in 2020. One day she was there, laughing at something daft on the telly, moaning about the weather the way she always did, and then the next day she was gone. No warning, no time to prepare, just silence where her voice used to be. For a long time after that, my dad looked like a man wandering through fog. He still did all the normal things, putting the kettle on in the morning, trimming the hedge at the weekend, popping down to the shops for milk. But there was something hollow in his eyes, like a light had gone out somewhere deep inside him. I remember worrying about him all the time during those first couple of years. I'd ring him just to check whether he'd had dinner. Sometimes he'd say yes, but I could hear the emptiness in the house behind him, that echo that only exists when a place used to be full of laughter and life. So when he told me in early 2024 that he'd met someone new, I was honestly relieved. Her name is Linda. She's 59, warm, funny, and the sort of person who somehow manages to calm people down before a row even properly starts. The first time I met her, I was nervous because, let's be honest, meeting the person your widowed parent is dating is always a strange emotional minefield. But Linda surprised me. She wasn't trying to replace my mum. She never behaved as if that role was even available. If anything, she was one of the only people who'd actually defend me when my dad and I clashed over something stupid. There were moments at family dinners where my dad would get stubborn about something, like dads do, and Linda would gently say, "All right, but maybe he's got a point." And every time that happened, I remember thinking, okay, maybe this really is good for him. Maybe he really is healing. So when my dad proposed to her last December, I was genuinely pleased for them. He rang me one evening, and his voice sounded lighter than it had in years. I could practically hear the smile on his face through the phone. "I asked Linda to marry me," he said. I remember leaning back in my chair and smiling straight away. "That's brilliant," I told him. "I'm really happy for you." And I meant it. During that same conversation, he explained they weren't rushing into anything. He said they were thinking of having the wedding sometime in 2027 because the next couple of years were already packed with family events. One cousin was getting married next summer. 2 others were expecting babies. There were holidays being planned, reunions, all sorts. "It'll give us time to do it properly," he said. That made sense to me. Honestly, it felt sensible. Life moved on after that conversation. Months passed. The wedding didn't really come up again, and I assumed it was just one of those things quietly developing in the background. Then, earlier this year, something else happened. I got a message from 2 of my closest friends from uni, and when I say close friends, I mean the kind of people you survive your early 20s with. The kind of friendships built on cheap takeaway, late-night talks in cramped student houses, and dragging each other through exams and terrible breakups. We hadn't seen each other properly in years. Life had scattered us across different cities, jobs, relationships, but we still talked. And when they sent me their wedding announcement, I felt this rush of excitement I hadn't felt in ages. Inside the invitation was a simple note. "Save the date. September 19th. I showed it to my partner that night while we were sat on the sofa. "They're finally doing it," I said. My partner laughed. "Took them long enough." We talked about how fun it would be to see everyone again. All those people we hadn't seen since graduation. The idea of everyone being back together after all those years felt special. So we confirmed we'd be there. Train tickets would need sorting. A hotel would need booking. But none of that mattered. It felt worth it. For the next few months, that wedding just became a happy little thing on the calendar, a bright spot to look forward to. Then yesterday happened. I was out running errands in the afternoon, picking up groceries and a few bits for the engagement drinks my friends were hosting later that evening. My phone rang while I was walking through a supermarket car park. "Dad," I answered, balancing my shopping bags in one hand. "Hey, what's up?" His voice came through the phone full of energy, the kind of energy I hadn't heard from him in years. "You need to mark your calendar," he said. I laughed. "All right. For what?" 19th of September, he said. I stopped walking. "Why?" "That's the day Linda and I are getting married." For a second, my brain just stalled. 19th of September, the exact same date. I genuinely thought I must have heard him wrong. "Hang on," I said slowly. "This year?" "Yeah," he said, sounding thrilled. "We booked the venue and the catering last night." My stomach dropped. I leaned against my car door and stared at the tarmac. "Dad, I've already RSVP'd to another wedding that day." There was a small pause on the other end of the line. "What wedding?" he asked. "My uni friends," I said. "The ones I told you about. I confirmed months ago." Silence. Then he let out a quiet sigh. "Well, you can celebrate with them another time." Something about the way he said it made my chest tighten. I tried to keep my voice calm. "I mean, I already promised them I'd be there." He sounded a bit irritated now. "But this is your father's wedding." I rubbed my forehead. I know that. I'm just surprised." Because the truth was, I wasn't only surprised about the date. I was surprised they hadn't checked with me first. I mean, if they'd rung me a week ago and said, "We're thinking about the 19th of September, would that work for you?" this whole situation could have been avoided. But that didn't happen. Instead, they'd already booked everything. Venue, catering, the whole lot. And now I was stuck staring at two promises on the same day. My dad's voice pulled me out of my thoughts. "You'd really choose a friend's wedding over mine?" And that was the moment I realized this conversation was about to become much more complicated. My dad's question hung there like a weight pressing down on my chest. "You'd really choose a friend's wedding over mine?" There was something in his tone that made my stomach twist. Not pure anger, not exactly. More like disappointment mixed with confusion. Like he genuinely couldn't understand how this could even be a dilemma for me. I took a slow breath and leaned against the car door. "Dad," I said carefully, "it's not about choosing them over you." "Well, it sort of is," he replied. I could hear background noise at his end. Maybe the telly, maybe Linda moving around in the kitchen. Normal sounds. Everyday sounds. And somehow that made the whole thing feel even heavier. Because for him, this was probably simple. For me, it wasn't. "I accepted their invitation months ago," I said. "They sent the save the date early this year. Travel, hotel, we've already started planning." He didn't say anything straight away. Then he sighed again. "You can celebrate with them another weekend," he said. "A wedding isn't the only time you can see your friends." I closed my eyes for a second. Technically, he wasn't wrong, but emotionally, it felt different. A wedding isn't just catching up. It's the moment. It's the vows, the speeches, the celebration people spend months, sometimes years planning. And I'd already told them I'd be there. "I just wish you'd told me earlier," I said quietly. That bit slipped out before I could stop it. Another pause. "What do you mean?" "I mean, if you'd rung before booking everything and asked whether that date worked, I would have told you about the clash. The silence on the line got longer. Then he said something that immediately made the tension spike. We didn't think we needed to check everyone's schedule. The way he said it sounded defensive. I tried to soften my tone. I'm not saying you needed permission. I'm just saying I'm your son. It would have been nice to know before everything was finalized. He let out a short breath through his nose. Well, the venue was free and we were excited. Linda and I didn't want to wait until 2027 anymore. And honestly, I understood that. After losing my mum the way he did, I could understand why he wouldn't want to delay happiness. Still, the timing hurt. Okay, I said slowly. But you only booked it yesterday. Yeah. So is there any chance the date could be moved? I didn't even fully believe the question when I asked it. But I had to at least try. There was a pause, followed by a short, almost dismissive laugh. I doubt it. You only booked it last night, though.
Venues don't work like that, he said. They're hard enough to get.
I rubbed my temple. Technically, maybe he was right. But something about how quickly it had all happened still felt strange. Dad, I'm just trying to work this out.
Well, I think it's pretty straightforward, he replied.
The irritation in his voice was more obvious now. This is my wedding. And there it was. The pressure. Not shouted. Not aggressive. Just sitting there between us. Heavy. I stared across the car park as people pushed trolleys to their cars, completely unaware that my brain felt like it was being dragged in two different directions. I know it's important, I said quietly. He didn't reply. So is the promise I already made, I added. Another silence. When he spoke again, his voice had shifted. It wasn't angry, but it was sharper. I just thought my son would want to be there when I got married.
That sentence hit harder than anything else he'd said.
Guilt crawled up the back of my neck instantly. Of course I wanted to be there. He was my dad. He'd spent years grieving after my mum died. Watching him slowly rebuild his life had been painful and beautiful at the same time. Part of me wanted to immediately say, fine, I'll cancel everything. But another part of me kept thinking about my friends, about how excited they were, about the months of planning they'd already done, about the promise I made. And suddenly it felt like no matter what I chose, someone was going to be hurt. I'm not saying I don't want to be there, I said carefully. Then come. Simple. Direct. My dad had always been like that. In his mind, the solution was obvious. Just choose. But life isn't always that tidy. Dad, the two weddings are in completely different places, I explained. It's not like I can nip to one ceremony and then head over to the other. People miss weddings all the time, he said. I know. So miss theirs. I swallowed hard. My partner had already been planning outfits for the trip. We'd talked about seeing old friends, maybe making a whole weekend of it. And again, I'd already confirmed. Backing out now would mean leaving them scrambling. It would also mean breaking my word, something that to me mattered. I just feel like I should honor the commitment I made, I said quietly. The atmosphere on the phone turned colder immediately. So that's your answer? No, I'm still thinking about it, I said quickly. But the damage was already done. My dad's voice had that tight edge people get when they're trying not to show how upset they are. I don't understand why this is even a debate. I didn't answer straight away. Because honestly, neither did I. Not completely. If the situation were reversed, if my friend had suddenly picked the same date as my dad's wedding, I probably would have chosen my dad without hesitation. But that wasn't what had happened. My friends had chosen the date first. My dad changed his plans after that date already existed. That difference felt important to me, even if it didn't to him. The conversation was starting to feel like it was heading towards a full-blown row, and I knew if we kept going, we were both going to say things we'd regret. So I forced myself to step back. Look, I said gently. Let me think about it tonight. He didn't respond straight away. Then he said, a bit stiffly,
Fine.
I'll ring you tomorrow. Okay. The call ended a few seconds later. I stood there in the car park for a long time afterwards, just staring at nothing. People were loading shopping into their cars. A child nearby was laughing. A trolley rattled across the concrete. Normal life. Meanwhile, my brain was spinning because this wasn't just about a scheduling clash anymore. It felt like a loyalty test. And whichever way I leaned, I felt like I was betraying someone. When I finally got home later that afternoon, I told my partner everything. Every detail. The call, the date, the pressure. They listened quietly the whole time. Then they asked the question I'd been trying not to ask myself. So, what are you going to do? I sat there on the sofa, staring at the carpet. I don't know. And for the first time since the call ended, a new idea started to take shape in my mind. A possible compromise. Something that might soften the blow if I couldn't be there. I was thinking, I said slowly. What? Maybe I could take Dad and Linda out for a really nice meal after the wedding. Like somewhere special. Just us. My partner tilted their head. As a celebration? Yeah. I shrugged weakly. I thought maybe that would show them I still care. That I'm happy for them. But even as I said it, doubt crept into my voice. Because deep down, I wasn't sure a dinner could replace a wedding. And I had a feeling my dad might see it the same way. That night, I barely slept. I kept staring at the ceiling, while the same thoughts went round and round in my head like a scratched record. Dad's wedding. My friend's wedding. One date. 2 promises. Every time I started leaning towards one decision, the other side would hit me in the gut with guilt. If I skipped my dad's wedding, I'd miss one of the biggest days of his life. The man had lost my mum without warning, spent years grieving, and finally found someone who made him happy again. But if I skipped my friend's wedding, I'd be breaking a promise I made months ago. A promise they were counting on. And I hate breaking promises. At about 2 a.m, I turned onto my side and looked at my partner, who was half awake beside me. You asleep? I whispered. Barely, they murmured. I still don't know what to do. They were quiet for a moment before answering. Well, what would you regret more? That question stayed with me. What would I regret more? Missing my dad's wedding? Or breaking my word to my friends? The truth was, both felt awful. Eventually, I drifted into a shallow sleep, full of strange, anxious dreams about train stations, wedding venues, and clocks that wouldn't stop ticking. The next morning, I woke up feeling like my brain had run a marathon, and I knew I had to call my dad. I made tea, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at my phone for ages before finally dialing. He answered on the 3rd ring. Hello? His voice sounded neutral, but there was stiffness underneath it. Hey, Dad. A small pause. So, have you thought about it? Straight to the point. I took a breath. Yeah. Another pause. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I'm really happy for you,
I said first. I want you to know that.
I know that, he replied. I wasn't completely sure he did. I've been thinking about it all night, I continued, and I keep coming back to the same thing. Silence. I already gave my word to my friends. The quiet on the line stretched long enough that I started wondering whether the call had dropped. Then he spoke. So you're not coming? It wasn't a question. It sounded flat. I didn't say that exactly, I said carefully. I'm saying I think I need to honor the commitment I already made. His voice sharpened. It's my wedding. I know. I'm your father. I know that too. I could hear him breathing out slowly, like he was trying to control his temper. You're seriously telling me you'd rather go to some uni friend's wedding than your own father's?
The way he said, some uni friend, made my chest tighten. They're not just random friends, I said. They're people who've been in my life for years.
And I haven't? That's not what I meant. But the conversation was already sliding downhill.
I just don't understand this, he said.
I do, I replied quietly, and I did. From his perspective, this probably felt obvious. Family should come first, especially for something as big as a wedding. But the situation wasn't that simple. You told everyone the wedding would be in 2027.
I reminded him gently.
That was the plan.
Right.
So when my friends picked the 19th of September months ago, there wasn't any clash. We changed our minds. I get that. Another silence. Then he said something that felt like a punch straight to the ribs. Well, I suppose I know where I rank. The guilt hit me instantly.
Dad, that's not fair.
Isn't it? No. I pressed my fingers against my forehead, trying to stay calm. You didn't ask whether the date worked before booking everything.
So now it's my fault?
I didn't say that, but it was part of the problem.
If you'd rung beforehand, even casually, this whole situation could have been avoided.
You should want to be there, he said quietly. I do want to be there. Then come. That same simple logic again. Just choose. But choices like this don't happen in a vacuum.
Dad, I said, my voice softer now. I love you. I really do. And I'm happy for you and Linda. I want your marriage to be wonderful.
He didn't reply. That's why I was thinking maybe we could celebrate another way as well.
What do you mean?
I could take you and Linda out for dinner after the wedding. Somewhere really nice. My treat. Silence. I suddenly realized how small that sounded compared to a wedding. Still, I pushed on. Just the three of us. Or the whole family if you want. We could celebrate properly. The quiet stretched so long that I started to feel sick. When he finally spoke, his voice was cold. So your plan is to skip my wedding and then buy me dinner? That's not what I meant. It sort of sounds like it. I rubbed my face. I'm trying to find a compromise. There isn't one. The bluntness of that hit like a wall.
This is my wedding, he continued. There's no doing it over later.
I know that.
Then I don't see how a nice meal fixes anything.
His words weren't exactly cruel, but they carried a weight of disappointment that made my chest feel heavy. I just don't want to break my word, I said quietly. You already did. My stomach dropped. What? You made a promise to your family too. That one stung. Because technically, he was right. I hadn't promised him directly that I'd attend his wedding, but there's an unspoken expectation there, isn't there? Children go to their parents' weddings. That's just what people do. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. Another long silence passed between us. Finally he spoke again, sounding tired now. Well, I suppose you've made your decision. The way he said it made my throat tighten. I'm still thinking about it. No, he said softly. You're not. And before I could respond, he hung up. The silence that followed felt heavier than anything he'd actually said. I sat there at the kitchen table, staring at my phone, feeling like the worst son in the world. My partner walked into the room a few minutes later and immediately knew something had gone wrong. How did it go? I looked up at them. He hung up on me. Their face softened with concern. Oh, wow. Yeah. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. I don't think the dinner idea helped. They sat down opposite me. What are you going to do now? And honestly, I still didn't know. Because part of me felt like I should stand by the promise I'd made months ago. But another part of me couldn't shake the image of my dad standing at his wedding and looking around for me and not seeing me there. After that phone call, the house felt strangely quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet. The heavy kind. The kind where your thoughts get louder because there's nothing else to drown them out. I sat at the kitchen table for ages, staring at the black screen of my phone like it might somehow tell me what I was supposed to do next. My partner stayed across from me, watching my face the way people do when they know you're wrestling with something painful. "You all right?" they asked softly. I shrugged, but the movement felt empty. Not really. Because the truth was, I hated conflict with my dad. Always had. Growing up, he wasn't a bad father. Far from it. He worked hard, turned up to my school events, helped me get my first second-hand car running when I was 17. But he also had a stubborn streak that could turn disagreements into brick walls. Once he decided something was right, changing his mind was like trying to push a hill. And right now, he clearly believed I was making the wrong choice. "What are you thinking?" my partner asked. I let out a long breath. I keep picturing his face if I'm not there. That image wouldn't leave my head. My dad standing at the front, family around him, Linda in her dress beside him, and an empty seat where I should be. My partner nodded slowly. "That would be hard." "Yeah. But what about your friends?" they asked. And that question twisted the knife in the other direction, because I could picture that too. Seeing them months later and hearing, "We really missed you at the wedding." Or worse, hearing nothing at all, but knowing I'd let them down after promising I'd be there. I rubbed both hands over my face. This is such a stupid situation. "It's not stupid," my partner said gently. "It's just messy." Messy was exactly the word. No clean answer. No perfect outcome. Just damage control. Later that afternoon, I tried ringing my dad again. No answer. I waited an hour and tried again. Still nothing. By evening, I started wondering if he was deliberately ignoring me, which, to be honest, wouldn't have surprised me. When my dad was hurt, his first instinct wasn't to shout, it was to go quiet. That night I kept thinking about someone else too. Linda. Because if anyone could help smooth things over, it would probably be her. She'd always been good at stepping in when my dad and I got tense with each other. So the next morning, I did something that felt a little awkward. I called her. She answered after a few rings. "Hi." Her voice sounded warm. Like always. "Hey, Linda. How are you?" I hesitated. "Honestly, a bit stressed." She gave a small chuckle. "Let me guess. The wedding date situation?" "Yeah. I thought so." There was something comforting in the way she said it, like she already understood the storm I was standing in. "I spoke to your dad," she continued. My stomach tightened. "Oh." "He's a little hurt." That word landed quietly, but heavily. "I didn't mean to hurt him," I said. "I know you didn't." She paused for a moment before going on. "He just pictured you being there." "I pictured being there too," I admitted. "That was the painful part. It wasn't as if I didn't care." "I told him it was unfortunate timing," she said. "But emotions are running high at the moment." I leaned against the kitchen counter. "Do you think he'll understand eventually?" She didn't answer straight away, and that silence told me a lot. "Your dad cares a lot about family," she said at last. "I know. And in his mind, this is a once-in-a-lifetime moment." That sentence hit the same place his words had hit the day before, because he was right about one thing. There wouldn't be another wedding. "I'm trying to find a way to make it up to both of you," I said. "I heard about the dinner idea." I winced slightly. "Yeah. It was thoughtful," she said kindly. "But I think your dad is reacting emotionally right now." "That makes sense. He'll cool down eventually." I hoped she was right, but there was still a knot of worry sitting in my stomach. "Do you think he'll ever forgive me if I don't go?" I asked quietly. She sighed softly. "I think he'll always wish you'd been there." That answer was honest. Painfully honest. But she added something else a moment later. "However, I also don't think he truly wants to force you into breaking another promise." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "Well," she said gently, Your dad raised you to keep your word. That stopped me because she was right. Growing up, my dad had always drilled that into me. If you say you're going to do something, you do it, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's difficult, especially then. I didn't think about it like that, I admitted. People are complicated, she said. That's definitely true. We talked a little longer after that. Nothing dramatic, just ordinary conversation. But when we hung up, I felt both better and worse at the same time. Better because Linda understood. Worse because the decision still hadn't changed. That evening, I opened my calendar again. 19th of September. 2 weddings, 2 different cities, 2 different directions. And suddenly something hit me that made my chest tighten even more. No matter what I chose, someone was going to tell this story later, and depending on who told it, I was either going to be the loyal friend who honored his word, or the son who missed his father's wedding. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling again, trying to imagine which version of myself I could live with. And the answer that slowly formed in my chest wasn't the easy one. I sat there for a long time after that realization. The house was quiet again, but this time the silence felt different. It wasn't confusion anymore. It was the kind of quiet that comes right before you make a decision you know people aren't going to like. Because at some point, you stop looking for a perfect solution. You just choose the one you can live with. I kept replaying Linda's words in my head. Your dad raised you to keep your word. That sentence kept circling back. Growing up, my dad had been strict about that sort of thing. If I promised to help someone move house, I helped them move house. If I said I'd turn up somewhere, I turned up. No excuses, he used to say. And now there I was, staring at the exact principle he'd taught me, realizing it was the same principle pushing me towards a choice he hated. I picked up my phone and looked at the calendar again. 19th of September. The more I thought about it, the more I realized something that felt painfully simple. My friends hadn't created this conflict. They'd chosen that date months ago. They'd invited me. I said yes. My dad changed his plans afterwards, and even though he had every right to do that, it didn't erase the promise I'd already made. So the decision slowly settled in my chest. Heavy, uncomfortable, but clear. I was going to honor my commitment, not because my friends mattered more than my dad, but because I'd already given my word. That evening, I rang him again. This time, he answered. Hello? His voice sounded calmer than it had the day before, but still distant. Hey, Dan. A pause. Hey. I took a breath. I've been thinking about this non-stop. Yeah? Yeah. I stared out of the window while I spoke. I'm really sorry this happened. Silence. I wish the dates hadn't clashed. Me too, he said quietly. I swallowed. But I already committed to my friend's wedding months ago. The words felt heavier the second time I said them, and I think I need to stick with that. There it was, the decision. The silence on the phone stretched for several seconds. When my dad finally spoke, he sounded tired, more than angry. So you're not coming? I closed my eyes for a moment. I'm really sorry. Another long silence. Then he said something that surprised me. I don't like it. That's fair. But I understand why you feel the way you do. That wasn't forgiveness, but it wasn't rejection either. And honestly, it was more than I'd expected. I'm still happy for you, I said. For you and Linda. I know you are. I wish I could be there. He breathed out slowly. Well, we'll have photos. A faint attempt at humor. It made my chest ache. I'd still love to celebrate with you afterwards, I said carefully. You mentioned dinner. Yeah, somewhere really nice. My treat. There was a pause. I'll think about it, he said. That was the closest thing to acceptance I was likely to get right then. And honestly, it was enough. We talked for a few more minutes after that. Nothing heavy, Just little things about work, family news, ordinary life. But the tension never fully disappeared, and I knew it probably wouldn't for a while. After the call ended, I sat back on the sofa and let out a long breath I felt like I'd been holding for 2 days. My partner looked at me. "So, what happened?" I told him, and "He's not exactly thrilled." They nodded slowly. "But he didn't disown you?" I laughed weakly. "No." "Then that's something." Maybe it was. Maybe this whole situation was just one of those messy adult moments where everybody is a little bit right and a little bit hurt at the same time. A few weeks later, I rang my friends to confirm the final travel plans for their wedding. They were excited, talking about seating plans and decorations, and how surreal it felt that the big day was finally getting close. And while I listened, I felt that familiar tug of guilt again, because somewhere in another city, my dad was getting ready for his wedding too. 2 celebrations, 2 different stories happening on the same day. When the 19th of September finally arrives, I know there's going to be a moment during the ceremony when my mind drifts for a second, when I wonder what my dad's wedding looks like at that exact same moment. What song is playing? Whether he's smiling, whether he glances towards the door out of habit, half expecting me to walk in. I don't know if I made the perfect decision. Honestly, I'm not sure there was one, but I chose the path that felt most faithful to the promise I'd already made. And I suppose sometimes adulthood is exactly that. Making imperfect choices and hoping the people who love you eventually understand. If you'd been in my shoes, what would you have done? Let me know in the comments, and if stories like this hit home for you, subscribe for more.